Good morning, everybody. All right, we're back to upper body. Strike that. We're doing lower body today. Total of 5 different movements. One of them is going to be combined at the end. We're going to start with a movement that's designed to primarily work the quadriceps. In fact, that's where you'll feel the majority of the burn. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff, especially some core stuff going on, because the base of this movement is going to be that bear position, right, which is just tabletop with knees hovering. So we're going to try and keep the back mostly pretty straight, trying to lock in this distance, right? So as well as we can. So you want to set up the band behind your knees. If you hyperextend your knees, you'll still feel this even if you don't want to straighten your knees all the way. Come to a mostly straight leg. I'm going to call it a straight leg, but you can do mostly straight leg, right? Don't hyperextend any joints that hyperextended and stuff, right? You're going to set up in that bear position where your knees are just hovering. You're going to reach the hips up and back, pressing into that band, pulling the kneecaps up, and then back down. So each time you come down, lock in the core, and then press back and away. So you want to come down so those knees are about an inch or so off the ground. And then really squeeze to the back. And when you get to that back position, pull those kneecaps up the legs to really activate those quads. Good safe one for those of you that have knee issues, if the rest of the system's okay. You can do a single leg version of this as well, band or no band. Just have to get the other leg out of the way. So I found it easiest to just kind of pick up and put an extra bend in that leg. And then we're just going to come back down, same bear position. And then take a moment at the top to notice if you swivel your hips too much and try and even out your hips. A little bit more hip work to stabilize and even things out if you're doing the single leg version. All right, second exercise we're going to do is hip thruster off the stability ball, or hip raise off the stability ball. I'm going to use dumbbells for weight, but you could use a band around your feet and over your hips. You could use no weight and just work on the movement. Roll out, and initially your head and neck are going to be supported on the ball, and the weight's just going to sit where your legs kind of connect to your torso, right where your front of the hips hinge, right? Keep the torso rigid, right? So that lower rib, this distance from this lower rib to this protruding hip bone is locked in. I'm going to drop my hips and then squeeze my hips back up. Try and keep the neck relatively neutral and in line with the spine. You tuck your chin or pull your chin back a little bit. I can take some of the pressure off the neck if you're feeling any. And if you're still feeling any tension from holding your neck up, when you get back up to the top, just release, get an extra squeeze, and then reset. You're not holding pressure in the neck. On the last one, give yourself a good 10-second squeeze. Right, try to not let the knees cave in or swerve out, right? Try and keep the knees forward. All right, third exercise. We're going to do a variation, kind of a combination of a hack squat, right, which is that super upright quad squat, and a cyclist squat. The main point being that we're focusing a little bit more on the quadricep in this squat. So you're going to step into a band. You can support yourself with anything. This just gives me a little bit of something to push into. So this could be a yoga strap. Just make sure everything's securely connected, because you are going to be leaning your body weight into this. You want to set this up so it's right at the top of your calf, but just below where your knees hinge. You can keep this as rigid as possible, right? So I'm going to try and avoid tucking my hips under at the bottom of the end of the range of motion. Sometimes my ankles, I think I can go further than I can, right? But just try and keep an eye on that. The first set I'm going to do unweighted, right? So locking this in as well as possible, keeping some air in here so my spine is supported, and then squeezing back up to the top. But I'm leaning back a bit so my knees are actually staying pretty well over my ankles. When I get to the top, I'm squeezing my kneecaps up, squeezing my glutes under, resetting. So this really lets me reach my hips back without my knees tracking forward. So just a different way to get those quadriceps sort of turned on. And you'll notice like you can lean back a little bit more into the band to help raise yourself up. Last exercise is actually a combination of two. I'm going to do the first set without any weight. We'll do a combination split squat, single leg deadlift. So pick a side. You want the knee of the back leg to be a little behind the knee of the front leg. We're going to keep our feet relatively narrow today, so the split squat will be a lot more quad focused with that narrow stance. And then we're also our foot position's already set up for that single leg deadlift, right? So we're going to split squat, knee tracks out over those toes. Okay for the knee to come forward as long as the heel stays down and we can keep some weight in the heel. They come up, squeeze, kneecap comes up, glute comes under, hip hinge, up and squeeze. Split squat, up and squeeze, hip hinge. So these add up pretty fast. So maybe we do 8 per side of each exercise. I'm really alternating between working that front quad versus working that front glute. If you have any knee issues, you want to watch the angle of the knee, right? Like how much flexion you get. If you've got healthy knees, it's totally okay for that knee drive forward. If you don't have super healthy knees, right, you can, but they're not injurious right now, you can broaden that stance and maybe do the split squat first, right? The broader the stance, the more work goes back into the backside in the split squat variation, and we take some of the pressure off the quadricep. So you pick the variation that works for you. Obviously do both sides of that one. And that is today's lower body leg workout. Enjoy.